So thank you for joining back. So today we'll be covering the next session in the Software Carpentry course that is around version control using Git. And some of you might already have heard something about Git, and or maybe the first time you heard about version control. So the concept around version control is similar to solution to a problem that probably many of us have faced in the past. I certainly have lots of time and still face with that trouble. That is trying to keep track of changes in documents, especially when you are trying to work with other people. Common example of that is trying to come up with a common Word document, and you end up circulating that a Word document over to different people over an email, and have different versions of that document, and well, it turns to be a nightmare eventually if enough people is involved. So that translates to many other kind of tasks where people need to collaborate together, and a lot of people need to make changes to some document or data set or anything that can be changed. So version control is some sort of tool that let us try to keep track of what has changed in the past, who did those changes, when those changes happen, so that we have some sort of history. And ideally, we can revert back to previous versions of those documents or those datasets or the programs, and we have a clear understanding of how everything changed over time. So so there are different softwares for this purpose. Two of the main ones is Git and Mercurial. So Git is very popular. Software Carpentry keep their own material on Git as well. Main ways to use Git. One is local in your local computer. You don't need to have our online repository. You can keep everything on your desktop computer, on your laptop. But the true power of Git really comes from having a repository online where other people can access it, make a copy, and collaborate with you. So in this course, we will try to show you the basics about how to set up Git, how to understanding the basics about Git's workflow, and then move on to how to set up an online Git repository, and we'll ideally demonstrate more or less how collaboration between a couple of people might work. That might pose a challenge since at the moment, I mean, it would be easier if we were face to face, but we will try to make it work. So let us start with probably the first part of the lesson. So it's a good part to start. So I'm assuming that all of you have Git installed. So as I mentioned before, if you just do Git space -- version, you should give some sort of meaningful message. And assuming that, I'll move on. And well, if you have access to the Software Carpentry material, you will see some sort of nice comic from PhD Comics, which demonstrates or exemplifies what I just mentioned, in this case regarding working on a PhD thesis, and probably a lot of us can relate to that situation. And this is exactly what Git is supposed to try to avoid, this nightmarish, never-ending creation of new files with different names. So what, as I mentioned before, what Git tries to accomplish is to give you a tool that lets you track changes on one or several documents, so that you easily can go back and forth. I mean, if you go back, you can review a previous version, explore it, and then go back to the current one, and without too much trouble, and you can make sure that why you can explore the reason why a change was made, on which moment was made. So those are the kind of features that Git has. So let's move on to try to set up Git. So in this, for this lesson, we are in a hypothetical situation where two characters, in this case Dracula and Wolfman and the mummy, were hired to try to explore the possibility of setting up a space station on another planet. So this is well suited for Halloween. So let's stick to it. So our main character, in this case Dracula, is trying to set up Git because he heard that it's a nice tool to collaborate with his other two colleagues, since they in the past have tried to collaborate in other ways like email, and that hasn't worked that well. So he's willing to explore this new tool and see how it works. So okay, he installed Git, but now what else he needs to do? So first, he might need to configurate Git. So for that, there are a couple of options that we can use. So if you take a look at my terminal, I'll start using Git Config --global, and so Git has several global options that you can use to configure it. So by using global in my example, I'm saying that this is my username. The username that I will provide, in this case, I will use my own name. And by using the option global, what I mean is that any different documents or repositories that will track with Git will be under my own name. That can change. Like I can just use a username for one set of files and another username for a different repository if I want. But in this case, I will just keep with my global option, just because that makes it easier for this course. And same way I set up my email address, in case I will be using my own email address. I just use my own email address because later on it will be helpful to connect with my repository online. That is. So now, and also you don't necessarily need to use in Git. You don't necessarily need to use your own personal email address, because since Git is public and you want to move online, your email address might be shown on your repository. So there are ways Git can have options to set your email address private, and you can use another email address provided by GitHub. You can find more about how to set up that if that's something that concerns you, in the training material. There are also a couple of gotchas regarding line endings. So the problem with collaboration between multiple people is that some of those people might be working on Windows, some other might be working on Macs or Linux. The problem is that the Windows and Unix-based systems use different line endings. So, and they are not typically, they don't understand each other. So an application working on Windows might not understand a document that was created on Linux because of those line endings, and also the other way around also applies. So solution to do this, to try to help with this problem, is to try to tell Git that we might actually be collaborating with other people in other systems. So we will be have to consider that problem. So there are a couple of options on the training and on the material that gives you which option you should be using in which case. So in my case, I'm working on a Mac, so I need to set this option to input. If you were working on a Windows machine, you need to set this to true. So this is system dependent. So please take your the option that you need best suits your system. So right, and well, if you take a look at the manual of Git Config, you can explore that with config dash, and you will get some options about what you have available. Let me see if this works. So, so the way Git works, to show you help, is you provide Git. You can provide just Git with help, and we'll give you some minimum options for help. So, but then you can provide specific options, like in this case, the configuration keyword that we have used, and it will show you more options pertaining only for config. In this case, you can see in here all of these options pertain specifically for config. But say that you want specific options for dash global. Now you can also do that, and it will give you actually the same options because it didn't understood my request in here. So it just sticks to here. So this is the way you can get some help from Git. On the material, you have more other available options. An important one that you might want to set up is that Git requires you or uses a text editor in many occasions to make changes to files or to comment on commits. And you will find out more about commits in a moment. But it will require a text editor at some point. So, and there are several text editors available. And well, okay, at this point, well, Git typically uses one by default that is called BI or Vim on Linux and Macs, and I believe also on Windows, depending how it was installed. But you can change that if you're not happy with a text editor. And there are different ways to do it. Well, there are different text editors you can set. So for that, you use this option global, and you tell Git which is the core editor that you want to use. So in this case, I can just stick with Vim. That's the default, but just to show you how it's done. But you can set it to Nano, for example, or Emacs, or other options. If you were in a Windows system, you can specify the whole path to your text editor and so on. If you know the path to that text editor, you can specify it. In the training material, you see some examples of how to do it. But in my case, let me just stick with Vim because I'm more comfortable with that one. But please go ahead and set yours to the text editor of your preference. Right. And you can always see what your current configuration with the dash list. And in this case, will show us our just inputted so far. So I have set up my name, my username, my the way I want Git to treat the line endings, and my text editor. So and any others that you might have set up at this point. In case you're connected through a network that uses a proxy, there's an option to do that. I'm assuming that you're not at this moment, but if you do, there's an option that you might need to configure, and it's in training material as well. And I already show you how to get some help. So at this point, can you not copy? Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not actually copy pasting. Probably what you are saying, saying that I'm using the my arrows on my terminal. If I hit my up arrow, I go back into my history and I read previous commands. That's why it looks like it's really fast, but I'm not actually typing that fast or copying. But yeah, sorry, that should take that into account. But this is a good tip, I suppose, if you're not familiar with this. Or maybe I misunderstood the question. Right, you're trying to copy into the terminal. Yeah, one option, Control-Shift-B works. Also, if you're using a mouse, yeah, Peter's suggestion might also work, but seems like not. Right, clicking twice does it. Awesome. Yeah, the problem with working with different terminals, have different behavior sometimes. Right. Now that we have configured Git globally, we are ready to start creating our first repository. So, and this hopefully show us how where Git stores information. So, the first thing that we need to do is to jump to a suitable directory. So for this course, we will be working on desktop. So let me just check if I don't have anything here. So I will do desktop, and I jump in there in that directory, and I will create another directory in here called planets. And I will store in this directory anything pertaining to my project on planets. So the first thing that you need to do to tell Git that you want to keep track of changes on a certain directory is to do git init. So, and it'll brings you a message about it telling you, okay, now I'm tracking, well, I initialize this empty Git repository. And if you do list the content of that directory, you won't see anything. But if you do an ls-a, you'll see that there is something new in there in that directory. It's a hidden directory. So in Linux and Mac, the hidden directories starts with a dot. So .git is a hidden directory on Linux and Mac. So in that directory, and that hidden directory is where Git will store most of the information about your repository. And it's hidden so that you don't necessarily put too much attention to it. If you ever get to erase that directory, you will probably erase all the information on your repository. So don't do that. Also, so now that Git is tracking this repository, Git lets you check the current status. So now Git will tell you that you are on a certain branch master and you are in initial commit, and there is nothing to commit yet because we haven't made any changes yet. So you will see how that message changes over eventually as we make changes to our repository. So Let me just show you how to do this. So for example, if we were to no commit yet instead of initial commit, is okay? Yes. Yeah, probably a different version of Git, but it's mostly the same. Basically the same message saying that you haven't made any changes. I assume this is the first time it's a fresh install, or it's a new directory. So now we have successfully created a new directory, and we have tell Git to keep track of it. So let's move on, and then we should start doing some interesting things on our new tracked repository. So let us create a new file. So in this case, use your text editor of choice. Oh, and I will be using Vim. And I will create a new file called mars.txt, text file, and I will input some text about my thoughts on Mars, I suppose. And I will just copy what is on the training material so that you can relate to it. And I will just save it, and that's it. And if you cut this, you will see that that's my new file only has one line. So now, if I were to repeat my command git status, you will see a new additional message from Git. It is telling me that there is now some untracked files, and it's telling me which file is it. It's telling me that Mars is there, but it's not currently tracked. But it's suggesting me how I can, if I wanted, how I can add that file to be tracked. So it's telling me I can use git add to track the file. So I can do that. So do git add, and then mars.txt, and if I do git status again, it's telling me that I have now a new file, and it's mars.txt. So and it's ready to be committed. If I wanted to commit these changes, this new file, Git is also suggesting me. Well, Git is telling me that these are the files that currently will be committed if I were to commit at this moment. So to commit a new file is, I just need to use this command from Git, and I can add the -m and some message in here, and so how it works is that so this commit command will take a snapshot of my current repository, and we'll keep it now on my on a registry, in a history of log of Git. But I'm required to put some meaningful message. It doesn't need to be meaningful, but it requires a message, so that I eventually, if I were to review the history of this repository, I could make sense of why the change happened. So that's what this -m flag is asking me to do. So I just said, okay, I'm starting some nodes, on Mars as a base. That's meaningful enough. So if I do that, hit enter, and I can see some feedback from Git. Sorry about that. Yes, thank you for telling that. Right. So are on the text editor bit. Right. Did you were you able to set the default text editor? If you type if you type this git config list, do you have that core editor set up? Right. It might be that. Okay. That looks okay. We haven't actually yet opened a text editor. So I don't know if I should go back a bit, or should I wait for a moment for everybody to catch up to the same point? Ah, I see. Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yes, you're right, Pablo. And Juan has a good suggestion. On Windows, if you have access through the in Windows, if you have access through if you can see the planets directory on your Windows on a window, and you can just create a text file in there with any text editor. Notepad or Notepad++ is a good option. At this point, let me just. There was another thing that was maybe useful for me to show you additionally. Might make things easier for what is remaining of the course. If I can find it. This is not part of the course, but might be useful if I can make it work while everybody's catching up. Peter says, are the filter LFS items on my list just to do with those mixed stuff? You mean in your when you type git global git config dash list? Yeah, right. Probably yes. So just use this option and I'll. Oh, that's a long list. It's probably that Git created a few extra things by default. Are you working on Windows? Yeah, maybe Git created something during the first configuration during installation. This Git for Windows. Yeah, I think Git creates something, some default options. But probably we can trust that Git knows what it's doing, and hopefully shouldn't be an issue for this course. So I don't know how's everybody doing. I don't know if Matt, have you had a chance to create a file in a different way? Yeah, I know it's always a problem trying to work with different operating systems. Uh, having the same setup is quite a challenge. Uh, there are some efforts now towards trying to address that. Would it be worth uh, using a breakout room as yesterday? Uh, okay, we'll try to create a breakout room for you, and hopefully Tom or Juan can walk you through how to set up a different text editor. Well, for now, let's try to continue. So let me just play my screen and try to recap what we just did. So we created a new file, and we added that line into that file. Cat arts. So that's the content of that file. and we explore how the Git status output was changing over time as we were first just creating this new file. Git told us that it was available, but it was not tracked. We show how to add that new file into for Git to keep track of it. Then we show how to tell Git that, okay, I'm happy with how this my file is at the moment. I want to commit it to the current stage, and for that we use this option, and with the flag -m to give some meaningful message. That's what we did so far. And Git gave us some feedback about that. It actually committed something. So if we were now to retype Git status, it will tell you that there is nothing to commit. Everything is, the working directory is clean, because all changes have now been added to the history, to have been committed. So now, if you want to keep track of what is happening, of what has happened so far, you can tell Git to show you the current logs. So if you use git log, you can see this. And so now this is where previously I used an option. So I wanted to ask you, do you see your output colored? You have any colors on this message from Git? Because I use an extra option to make that happen on my terminal. Yes, cool. Yes, so only mine was not. Perfect. So only mine was black and white. So just in case you wanted to know, you ever faced with a terminal that doesn't show colors, this is how to make it work. So it's another global configuration option, and you say that's color user interface, and you just put also, and that's it. So good. Everyone has colors. That's good. So now in this output from log, what it's telling us is it will show us all the commits made to a repository in a reverse chronological order. The listing of each commit includes the ID of the commit. So this is this long ID, alphanumeric ID. Who made the change? In this case, me, and a way to contact that person, and when that change happened, and the meaningful message was provided. So that's why it's important to try to give something that makes sense when during that commit. And so all of this information that Git is printing at the moment is stored on this .git directory. So as I mentioned before, if you were to delete this this directory, you will be basically deleting all the information from the repository, all the changes that have been made. So yeah, don't do it. So now let's suppose that we want to keep modifying our file, and we want to keep tracking the changes on it. So let's open again our text file, and we will add a new line. and we save. So hopefully we have this this content in here. So if I show the content, that's how it should look. And now, if I once the file is modified, Git will notice this and will show us that if we type Git status, the current status of the repository, Git will show us that something was modified, and it's actually little that that file has not been committed yet. And again, it's giving us a couple of options to add this file to the files to be committed. So the two options, well, one is the one that we used before, git add, and we specify the file that we want to add. That's a good question. What do you mean by commit a file? So how it works at the moment for Git has 3 regions where things, well, where our files are stored in a way. So one is the current directory where we are working. Another one is a stage region where changes to our file are saved, or where it changes. So our current Mars file is in that region. So those changes are considered by Git in that second region. And then there is a third region where Git will take those changes and put it in that final region where they are, let's say, carved in stone, basically. So you have your unmodified file, your modified file, but the changes are not yet finalized. And then you have the third one, that is your changes are now having committed, are now final. And that's what we mean with commit. So now, so as I mentioned, we can use git add and the name of our file, and that's typically the recommended way to do it, because this other second option, git commit and the flag -a, what we'll do is Git will go ahead and add all the modified files that are on our current directory. At the moment, we only have one, but we might have more than one, and maybe some of them are not yet ready. The changes on those files are not yet ready to be committed, and we only finish with working with one, and we only want to commit the changes to that particular file. So that's why sometimes it's better to do this Mars, use the specific name of that file. So we add the file again, and we can do. So now we are our Git status tells us that we have put this file ready to be committed. And I can do something similar now. Yeah, if I can repeat the process that I did before, and at this point I can change the message to make it suited for the changes I just did. And you will be able to see that if I do a git log again, another change was added to my history. And that's in reverse chronological order. That's how Git keeps track of what is happening. So, and we can continue making modifications to our file. You know, if we add a third line, if I type this and I save the file, the file should look something like this. And Git has another feature that after every change, you can before you add the file to the files that are ready to be committed. How it works is that Git, you can explore what are the differences between the previously saved file and the new modified file. So if you do git diff, so it will show me some cryptic output, but basically this makes sense in the context of some programs that are specialized on patching files, meaning giving some instructions. They can take you from one version of a file to another. So in this case, this output basically is telling us that in order to change between the older version and the newer version of this file, mars.txt, you only need to change a line. And this is what have changed between the older version and the new version. So a program, a specialized program on patching files will read all of this output and will know what to do to move between versions. And that's how Git more or less let us revert back if we wanted to. But for the moment, what's important from this is that it let us see, hopefully not too difficult, that what was the change made. So hopefully everybody were able to see this. Now something important to mention is that when I do this git add and do git add mars, and I take the changes I did to the stage region. If I try to at this point, if I do git status, now my file is in here. It's ready to be committed. if I try to review to check the changes, Git will not show me any changes. This is because the file was just placed ready to be committed. Git by default will only show me the changes on those files who we haven't added to that next stage. But if we wanted to see the files in this secondary stage, we can see we can add that option, and it will show us the same. So that's a way to see what has been modified. And again, once we made a change, we added the file to ready to be committed or ready to be put on the permanent region. We do this. We transfer the file in the permanent region with the command commit -m, and we add a message. So something, I don't know. Okay, I'll just probably will like you to exemplifying here. Don't do this. If you only do git commit, Git will prompt you, will take you to a text editor for you to do the same, to write a meaningful message. Something happens. Sometimes you forget to do the -m, and something you end up in a new screen and you don't know exactly what happened. So that is just that Git displays a text editor and asks you to enter a message. Typically, that's something that you want to do if the message you want to input is long. But it's better if you try to keep the message short and precise if possible, unless it is, I mean, you really need to put a lot of information to explain what just happened on your last change. But in this case, we can keep it short. So we add that, and Git is telling us giving us some feedback. And if we repeat Git status, we see that everything is clean now again, and we do the git log to see what is the history of a repository. You will see now 3 changes have been recorded on the repository. So that's useful to keep track of what's happening. And at some point, eventually, once you have made enough modifications to your repository, you will have 50, 60, hundreds of different entries like this that won't be able to fit on your screen. In that situation, in the moment where that log doesn't fit on your screen anymore, Git by default will open a window, and you will see a new prompt on that screen. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a colon symbol, and that will let you know that you are in a different display that is showing just the output of the command git log. And then with your arrows keys, you can scroll up and down to explore that output. To exit that display, you only need to hit the Q key for quit, and you should be back to your previous display. So you can limit for in those situations when your history is too long, you can limit the amount of output. For example, with git log, you can just do, if you only want to see the latest change, you can do git log and then dash with a number, and it will show you just the last modification that you did. Or you can do -2 and it will show you the last 2 and so on. Another way that git log lets you interact with the history is you can do use this option, one line. So in this case, it's more compact and might be simpler to review. It also gives you a number in here that is it matches the numbers, the beginning of this long number. And in many cases, Git will let you work with previous versions of your files. Say that you wanted to explore how your files were, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and you use the git log to try to work for that date, a date that you think something meaningful happened, and you want to revert back to explore how were your files at that point. You will need to use this number, but this is a long number. But you can also use only the first 7, typically 6 or 7 numbers to refer to any specific ID. They're typically unique. They are not typically. They are unique ID numbers. So every commit that you do receive a unique ID number that will let you at some point refer to any commit that you have done in your repository. Something that we'll be using later on. Okay, something that another thing. Let me just clear my screen. Oh, sorry, there's a question in the chat. This unique. Well, you only need to copy the ID number of the commit that you want to refer to. How to use them to go back to another version? We will be showing that in later on. Okay, so let me just clear my screen. And let me just mention something about directories. So at the moment, my directory only has mars.txt in here. If I were to create a new directory, spaceships, there is the directory. But if I ask Git, what is the current state of my directory, it will tell me there is nothing here nothing has happened, despite that we just created a directory. I can even try to tell Git to add this directory. If I do again Git Status, it will keep telling me that there is nothing to commit, everything is clear. So what happens is that this is the default behavior of Git for empty directories. Since it's empty, Git will just ignore that directory by default. If you wanted to force Git to keep track of a directory just because you want to create a special directory structure on your repository, you can change the spaceships, and you could do this. You can do you can create a yes. the option graph. At the moment, let me just finish showing this bit, and I go back to the graph option. So, so this is if you change to the spaceships directory and you create a new file called git keep. So this is a hidden file and it's just empty. And if you go up now again and do Git Status, you will see now that now Git actually sees this this directory. So what just happened is that I just created a dummy file. Actually, it can be named anything. It can, can be anything, just as long as it's a file, really. Git will recognize that it's not empty, and therefore will say, okay, there's a spaceship directory that is not empty, so it's in here. It exists. So by convention, making it hidden and making and naming it git keep, it's just a convention to recognize that that's the purpose of this hidden file. It can be named anything you want. So that's how to work with directories in case you really want to keep a directory around for because it's important for the file structure of your repository. Going back a bit for Peter's question, before I was showing you about how Git log can have different ways to show you to present the output. So I showed you before that Git log one line will give you this compress option. So, but there's another one that will give you this graph, and it will show you something slightly different. In this case, the only difference is that you have these star symbols in front. This is because we only have one main, say, version of our files, but it will look different if we were working with different branches. It will show which commits, how commits are distributed among those branches. But at the moment we are not really working with branches, so I thought maybe not. It might be confusing if I show this and it doesn't look very different. So okay, that's how you show different. That's different ways to show the display, the output from log. How to work with the directories, empty directories. Now let us do something else. Let me just clean my screen. So in here, if say now that I want to have I will just show you how to add several so the last thing we did was Git Status, and it was showing us this new directory that it's just been tracked by Git because we have it's not completely empty. So we can add this file, this directory. And now Git Status, and now it's there. But we can actually, now that this file is in here, we can if we want to have, we can add some more extra files to that directory. Say that we want to do something like this. I just want to put a new file in this directory, under this directory, that will yes, Juan has added some information, more information about the -- graph option for log. And yes, there are many more options available. Obviously, for lack of time, we cannot cover all of them. So in here, I will just create two new files under this spaceships directory. So two files to have a few notes about those two spaceships. So now that's how my file structure looks at the moment. Now we do Git Status. You will see that I still have the previously added file, but now also Git is indicating me that I have two new files that are not tracked at the moment. But I can do this Git add, and I could do one by one, Git Apollo 11, and then go do Sputnik 1, or I can just do Git add and give the name of the directory where my modified files are, my new files are. And in this case, I can do this because all the files that are in there, all the new files, I want to keep track of all of those files, in those two new files. If that's the case, I can do this. And I do Git Status. You will see now that I have 3 new files. And now I can commit my changes and do add some initial thoughts on spaceships. And you can see here that now Git is telling me that 3 files changed. So the .keep and the 2 spaceships files, those are now added to the repository. So I think we all already mentioned something about how to choose a good commit message. So typically try to keep it short. Should be there's an exercise in here to try to pick which message will be the more suitable. So it gives you three options, and you can try to guess which message is the most appropriate for the current situation. So in general, a message should be short but meaningful, and ideally not exactly the same that you did with the change. So should add some information to the person who might be reading that message to understand why that change occurred. So it might be good at this moment, if you want to take a look at the examples at the end of this session, of this lesson. There are a few exercises, and might be good to take a break at this point. And if you could also take a look at these examples, so we can review them in 15 minutes and discuss if there are any doubts. Would that be okay? Well, so yes, of course. If let me just change change the screen I'm displaying at the moment. If I can. Let me just see if there. This is this lesson 4 on this course, the Git course. So if you could take a look at those exercises, and we can come back in 15 minutes and discuss further. I think that would be good. Stay around just in case anybody has any other questions. Sorry about that. Use a different, didn't select another screen.